Hey guys, Zephyr Nature here. So recently, you guys know, at least my viewers know, that I've been putting out videos of 72 dangerous fish. So basically, the 72 most dangerous fish on the planet, and I've been doing this with my friends Hannah, Dawson, and Claire. And so then I saw that Casual Geographic posted a video relating to dangerous fish, and so I'm like, okay, I'll have to check that out in a bit. So then, a few days later, Hannah says to me, "Hey, did you see that Casual Geographic posted a new fish video?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna watch it," and then she told me, "No, don't watch it. You're gonna hate it." Just telling me how it doesn't do the justice to the catfish like they deserve. Only mentioning the Wells catfish, stuff like that. Several other things I'll hate. So I thought I would just go through and kind of just do a review of it, watch it for this is gonna be the first time I'm watching it. I'm just gonna pause and talk about things, whatever. But basically, what you need to know about me is that I'm just the dangerous fish expert. So we're going to be going through this and seeing why Hannah said I will hate this video. So, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of things probably, but okay, we'll get this started.
You know, the greatest trick Hollywood ever pulled was convincing the world that sharks are the only things to fear in the water. There be monsters. In the last video, we talked about how sharks might just be the most misunderstood creatures in nature, with a
Which is true.
PR team that works about as hard as a whiteout's brain after 6 rounds of CTE. They've been done so dirty, they've actually overshadowed the other ichthyological insanity spawned from Satan's septic tank. These are 7 fish that should honestly terrify you more than any shark. This isn't really to substitute one fear for another, but I do think these fish could make a much more traumatizing, nightmare-inducing horror flick than Jaws. And it starts right here. Those eyes belong to a pair of Arapaimas, also known as a pirarucu. You've definitely seen them before. Does this video ring a bell? It definitely rang his. It's one of the biggest.
Yeah, and that video is staged. However, yes, they are easily capable of knocking you out, but that guy admitted that video is fake. But yeah, it's true. They will easily knock you out. They are extremely powerful. We'll see what he says about them.
Freshwater middle fingers nature forgot to vault, usually growing to over 6 feet long and 200 something pounds. It's bad enough those are NBA point guard measurements, but the beefiest ones can get to 10 feet in length and weigh over 400 pounds. This Jurassic Roy Dubby usually eats other fish to go with fruits and seeds, but also birds and allegedly even monkeys sitting on branches too close to water. And if you don't believe that, it's because you haven't seen them hunt. They're explosively quick, and the aquatic black hole has been known to confuse feet for fish and violently pull people underwater. One zookeeper reportedly made the mistake of trying to retrieve a glove that had fallen into an Arapaima pool, and in a split second got his hand, wrist, and several fingers broken. There's also the fact that a refrigerator-sized fish will yeet themselves out of water in self-defense. And let's talk about that defense. The plus-size bite jet is covered in heavily armored scales, not only tough enough to tank piranha attacks, locals historically use them as nail files. They've also used their tongues as scrapers, since these fish have teeth growing out of a bony tongue that can...
Yeah, one of the things, their tongue, it will literally just like crush a fish. They're called bony tongues as the group of fish that they're in. And when they eat something, it will literally crush against the roof of their mouth. Blood shoots out the gills of the Arapaima. It is crazy.
Be used to effectively crush struggling prey against the roof of their mouths. You know nature got in its bag when it made a fish that can breathe air, and the Antichrist of the Amazon has a modified swim bladder that was repurposed as lungs, meaning this flex of a fish can survive 24 hours out of water. On one hand, that means they have to come up for air every 20 minutes or suffer the eternal shame of being a fish that finds a way to drown. But it also works out for them because in low oxygen water where most fish become slow and sluggish, the air merchant menace can pretty much go on a killing streak. Now the question is, could an Arapaima pack up a person? While there's no indication they see us as a snack, there are old stories of high-strung assault guppies effectively drowning people, likely by knocking them unconscious and leaving them incapacitated underwater. Not him, he's fine. You can unclench guidelines, he's good. But one man that almost wasn't was Jeremy Wade. He probably needs no introduction.
Jeremy Wade.
Long story short, he's a zoologist who hosted the show River Monsters, which ended, but only because he caught every fish nature had to offer. But he almost caught an early life retirement after a pissed off Paima struck him square in the chest and nearly caused irreversible damage to his heart. Not only did this fish nearly have us singing, the suspect wasn't more than 90 pounds. Remember, the overachievers can press the scales at 400 or, 180 kilograms worth of kill a man. So yeah, the Arapaima is a shack-sized, air-breathing, armor-plated predatory vacuum, and strangely enough, it's not the fish I'm most scared of in the Amazon. But we'll get to that.
Oh, we got an ad. I guess I have to let that play before I can pause it. Oh, not skippable. Great.
A message from the Sonic Department of Research and Deliciousment.
Save money every day with Fun 99 menu. Treat yourself with a new...
The piranha.
Okay. So, thing about Arapaimas, they will literally... The thing is, they have these nests, and they basically just sit above them. You have one of the parents who just sits on top of them, then you have the other that just circles around the nest. So whenever a canoe or a swimmer gets too close, if it's a canoe, they bump it, knocking the canoe into the water. And since that person is still with that nest, then they will attack you over and over, just ramming you with their heads until you are dead. And once you are dead, they will leave you alone. But basically, Arapaima are one of the most brutal killing things out there. Like, they literally will just eliminate you. If you are still breathing in their habitat and you're near their nest, they're going to kill you. The thing is that they are going to drown you. Basically, they hit you and you fall in the water. If you don't drown from that, because almost nobody wears life vests and all that, so you fall in that water, either you drown out of just the surprise taking in water, whatever, or you're still alive and the Arapaima comes back and hits you again with its head. It will just keep doing that. Arapaima should not be messed with. Very, very brutal fish. They're probably, I would say, honestly, possibly the third most dangerous fish out there. Like, they're just brutal.
Actually isn't. If you remember from an earlier video, piranhas might be just as misunderstood as sharks. They're mostly just scavenging opportunists that our childhoods convinced us were way more of an issue. You cannot say the same for their cousins found in the Congo basin of Central Africa. The Goliath tigerfish can grow to nearly 5 feet long, over 100 pounds, and they're what people were told piranhas are times 10. They're in the same order, but where piranhas are primarily a swimming cleanup crew, tigerfish actively hunt for their bodies. And you'll find out, nature built this prehistoric problem to do exactly that. They have sharp dagger-like teeth that many swear are comparable to that of a great white, although I personally see them as more conical, like a crocodile, which is a coincidence since the saltwater variety are their only natural predators. But of course, the swimming expletive has also been known to murk smaller crocs. They have eerily strong eyesight to track prey, special organs to detect the vibrations they make underwater, and they're strong enough to brute force their way through the turbulent waters of their hunting grounds. They're considered one of the toughest freshwater fish time left behind, and tigerfish are even on record snatching birds out of the air. Not just birds, but swallows, some of the fastest and most maneuverable out there. Scientists studying them watched as 300 birds got permanently grounded by tigerfish in just over 2 weeks. They're so feared that in many places they're only known by one name, Benga, meaning the dangerous fish. There's even a story of a young girl wearing a belt made out of bottle caps in order to ward off evil spirits. Ironically, it did the exact opposite and attracted a tigerfish who apparently confused the bottle caps for fish scales and nearly bisected the girl. Allegedly. It's an extremely...
Allegedly, that actually happened, so we'll just... yeah.
fast, explosive vice grip with almost zero prey prejudice. And I'd still rather take a bite from them than the fish up next. And that's cause next is the Candiru. And a lot of y'all already know what road we're going down. The Candiru is a tiny parasite in the Amazon, also nicknamed the vampire fish for their habit of invading the gills of larger fish and scraping the insides to feed off their blood. And with backward-facing spines and a powerful bite, it's nearly impossible to shake it off before it completes its liquid transaction. The horror comes from the legend of Candiru being attracted to the chemicals in urine and swimming up the urethra of unlucky humans and getting stuck up there. A fate that takes surgery to reverse. Imagine a serrated, sentient toothpick in your bathing suit business and you'll see why the violation with gills is so feared. How much of this is even real? Most of the reports of people getting penetrated by peenfish are really sus at best. Apparently, they're not even attracted to the ammonia in human urine in the first place. There's a good chance that the Candiru controversy...
And those are Candiru issue, which is a totally different fish. Yes, they are also catfish, just like the Candiru, but they are not that closely related.
Came from European settlers coming home from long expeditions and telling these long, exaggerated stories to anyone who'd listen for status and attention. Yeah, but basically they were probably lying for clout. You have to remember, the whole piranha skinning a cow thing spawned from locals staging an event to impress the president. The truth is...
Well, yeah, and I mean, if he's about to say that they don't do that, we literally have evidence of a man who... They literally have the specimen in a museum of the fish that swam up a guy's penis. This guy remembers it. It obviously happened to the dude. He's not faking it. And they have the exact fish that was in his penis inside of a wet specimen jar at a museum. So I don't think they faked that.
Your chances of peeing in the Amazon and getting frontal probed by a fish are about as much as you getting meal prepped by a shark or getting struck by lightning. Oh, my bad. And getting struck by lightning. That being said, I'd rather get tag teamed by the pets of Poseidon and the forces of Zeus than have a bloodbuster up my urethra, no Franklin. If the odds ain't zero, they're just too high for me. But I'll happily take a Candiru to the Mandiru, then run into aquatic op number 4. In fact, I'm so afraid of it, I actually had to break my own rule for this video. The Humboldt squid, obviously...
Once again, that last clip, those were Candiru issue, not Candiru. The thing about the Candiru issue, I don't know if he's going to go over them, but the Candiru issue are the ones that just burrow into your body while you're still alive. They're worse than piranhas. Like, piranhas aren't going to eat you alive. The Candiru issue definitely will. They will just burrow into your body. I mean, if you're like not drunk, you're fully aware of everything, you can just grab it and pull it off of you. But if you're knocked unconscious, you're drunk, something like that, these things will just get into you. They will burrow, and then they'll eat all of your organs until there's nothing left, and then it'll literally just be a skin bag with bones in it. So yeah, Candiru issue are not to be messed with. But those are not the same thing as Candiru. Also, the picture he included here, that is a Candiru issue, not a Candiru. So there is a difference. The Candiru is a small little thing that can get, if I remember correctly, up to like 7 inches or 6 inches was the size of the one that was in the guy's penis. And the Candiru issue gets over a foot long and is also called the blue whale catfish because they kind of got a similar shape or whatever. They're big and chunky. I don't know. They proportionately wise, they weigh a lot for their size. It's kind of an interesting thing, but I guess it's because they're just eating the insides of all the fish and occasionally people that they come across. But yeah, I guess Humboldt squid next.
Isn't a fish, but it's the closest thing to a living nightmare on this list. Let's be clear, at 5 feet, about 100 pounds, there are bigger squid. What sets Humboldts apart is they can hunt in packs of over 1,000. Yeah, that's 3 zeros like a Tony Snell stat line. Nicknamed Diablo Rojo, there are old fisherman tales of men falling overboard, getting swarmed, and never coming back up. There's also stories of them curiously approaching divers before flipping and trying to rip their masks off. But who needs stories when marine biologist Alex Kirstich can tell you about the time several homicidal squids grabbed him and attempted to drag him down into the dark maw of the abyss? It gets worse when you realize what exactly happens when a red devil decides to take you to hell. Humboldts aren't just highly intelligent, they're covered in tiny red chromatophores that they can use to rapidly change color in order to communicate with each other. It's like Morse code but for Crip and calamari. We don't know exactly what it means, but there's a good chance if a Humboldt confronts you and starts violently flashing red, it could be telling a bunch of others you can't see that you're free eats. So likely the last thing you'll see is pulsing red before you get eaten alive. It doesn't help that satanic cephalopods are known for speed eating and are notorious for stripping fish to the bones faster than fishermen can reel them. Add a beak that can easily slice flesh and a bite force that can reportedly crack bone, and I think you see why I'm not exaggerating when I say I'll deal with every other fish on this list than a pack of predatory color coordinating squid. And I don't care what logic says, there's no doubt in my mind this squid would eat a human if they thought they could. Why? Humboldt squid only live about a year. That rapid growth in a short time means they'll rarely pass up an easy meal.
Yeah, that's the thing. Giant squid live to be like 3 years old. They grow like 15 feet a year, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, sailfish grow from almost microscopic to 5 feet long just in the first year of their life. So that's pretty impressive too. But no, giant squids take the fastest growth crown in like literal growth. Like some things might grow faster proportionately, but in a year growing 15 feet, that is just crazy.
Even if it's their own kind. Humboldts are highly cannibalistic, and they will not hesitate to turn on a weak or injured member of their own hunting party. There was a study done off the coast of Chile that found that out of over 2,000 squid, more than half held the remains of their own kind in their stomachs. It sounds to me that anything they see as weaker than them is something they can feed off, and the only saving grace for us is they usually only press things smaller than they are. You don't even have to be seen as food for affiliated squids to be a problem. Like a true xenophobic, they react to most things they don't understand with aggression, and they've even attacked cameras and equipment and left them out of order. But to me, the most disturbing aspect of getting assaulted by squids is, even if you escape, if you panic and surface too fast, you can get the bends and past tense anyway. That type of psychological horror is what puts the Humboldt here, and wouldn't you know, emotional damage is another symptom of finding out about the next fish.
Oh, ad again.
Dude, Artemis is probably one of my favorite too. Like, that crow vibe with the sniper is wicked.
Because now we got...
Okay, the bends was a thing in the longfin eel case. People say, oh, longfin eel aren't that dangerous. They definitely are. They're probably up there with the, I don't know, top 15 most dangerous fish. Like, longfin eels are nasty. There's been dozens of cases of people getting killed by them. Just people disappearing, people... there's a diver, the thing I was talking about with the bins, there's a diver who's deep in the lake. The eels were attacking him while he was trying to retrieve a boat propeller, and he was getting pulled down to the depths. He managed to make it to the surface, but the eels followed him all the way there. He got onto the shore, but he actually collapsed from the bins, and now he has severe PTSD due to the squids and that nightmare encounter. Due to the eels and the nightmare encounter. The eels are they're brutal, and they're not worse than the squid. The Humboldt squid is, probably the worst pack hunter out there for humans, but at least aquatic wise. But the longfin eels they're dangerous.
The stonefish. Not one of, but the most venomous fish known to man.
Also, I love how this is fish that belong in a horror movie more than sharks. But then it's like stonefish. Like, you can't make a horror movie with people stepping on fish. I mean, maybe you could find a way to make it entertaining. I don't know. But you can't have a whole plot centered around deadly fish that you step on as a horror movie. Like, I don't know. Maybe you can do it. I don't know.
Armed with toxin, and symptoms of getting stung include crippling pain, shock, tissue death, and even paralysis. And speaking of pain, you can be in agony for over 12 hours, and it's enough of an eternal jihad to cause hallucinations. Anecdotally, there have been tourists who've stepped on a stonefish only to beg their doctors to chop off the whole foot. Then there's the added threat of, if you don't get out of the water quick enough, it won't even be the venom. You can get paralyzed and catch a stage fatality to drowning. Even if you survive, you can still suffer permanent nerve damage and severe muscle atrophy. But that all wouldn't even be that bad if the stonefish wasn't nature's manifestation of a dick move. The most venomous animals on the planet usually dress with bright colors to warn the rest of the population that they're packing. Stonefish decided to do exactly none of that, and instead cosplays as a stone, only to mortally punish you for its camouflage working. Like I said, it's like having invisibility, but also serving a death penalty every time someone steps on your foot. Then you gotta add the fact that there are another fish that can survive 24 hours out of the water, and they have a literal switchblade growing out of their forehead. Yeah, I knew they were a problem ever since one nearly perma-napped Nigel Dorbear, a stone-cloaking toxic minefield of misery. But with stonefish antivenom being the second most administered in Australia, today if you get stung, your chances of surviving are actually pretty good. Not like the next fish, because for this one, there is no antidote. The stonefish might be the most venomous fish, but the pufferfish is arguably the most poisonous thing alive. Quick rule of thumb on the difference: if it bites you and you die, it's venomous. If you bite it and you become a wuzz, it's poisonous. And few things are more poisonous than puffer tetrodotoxin, which...
Once again, I could see pufferfish as like, you can't make a horror movie about pufferfish killing people unless they're super giant or whatever, I don't know. But in terms of like, you could maybe have a serial killer who kills people with pufferfish, I don't know, like with the toxins, but like, I don't know. In terms of horror movie, like, it doesn't work with these fish like this, pufferfish, stonefish, I don't know, it's not like something that could be easily doable. I mean, I'm sure there's some directors out there who could do it, pull it off, but I don't know.
Just 1,200 times more of a death sentence than cyanide. Tetrodotoxin interferes with signals between nerves and muscles, causing muscle paralysis and a total shutdown. And of course, the fugu blowfish is considered a delicacy, but if the chef misses a single cut even by a little, you're instantly on the clock. You You won't know that happened until your face goes numb and your lips and tongue get this weird prickling feeling. Then, you'd suddenly get a splitting headache and dizziness to go at vomiting and diarrhea as your body desperately tries to purge the poison. But it's already too late and you'd start getting paralyzed, starting with the hands and feet, but slowly spreading out. And by this point, you likely can't even call for help. Finally, it'd get harder and harder to breathe until you notice the room slowly fade to black, leading to either a coma, seizure, or just death. The permanent kind. Tetrodotoxin essentially flips a kill switch in your body, and there is no antidote. The only treatment is hooking you up to a respirator to breathe for you and praying it passes. The poison puffball is such a problem, it makes you forget they also have teeth that can bite clean through your finger. In fact, it's more than enough to violate.
Oh, I love that video.
And I don't even know how to describe what they do to crabs. Turning crustacean into crustacean with a smile, no less. It's criminal. There's nothing funny about getting caught in that bite, with reports of pufferfish mutilating the genitals of men, and one case in 2008 where a Cambodian child had his coin purse sliced in half by a pufferfish. And unlike the Candiru, this ain't a myth. Have your privates out by a puffer and you might just get... So that's 6 of the sinister 7, but before we get to the last one,
I wonder what's left.
mentions.
Catfish.
The fact that there's a fish that weaponized electricity enough to decommission a caiman and we just accept that is kind of crazy. And the thing is, it might not even be the voltage, but it's getting knocked out in shallow water that'll get you. Swordfish are one of the fastest things in the sea. They also have a built-in melee weapon equipped capable of inflicting life-altering harm. In 2015, a Hawaiian man was fatally struck in the chest while trying to catch one. Another man in Malaysia bled to death.
I've seen that video. That's kind of interesting. The guy wasn't harmed. If he's saying something about this guy dying, this guy survived. It's just a deep sea incident. I don't know if he'll show the full clip, but the guy gets back onto his station out of the water, like into a little chamber, so he doesn't die or anything. But basically, the swordfish punctures his oxygen tank, but luckily he doesn't die. He makes it inside the chamber before anything bad happens.
After a swordfish yeeted itself out of the water and also RNG'd him in the chest. Swordfish are also on record shanking sharks and even bleeding out sea turtles. The sheep's head fish. Really only because of that mouth. Trypophobics be damned. The Titan triggerfish is a highly aggressive honey badger with gills, capable of dishing out severe injuries with the same teeth they use for crunching coral, sea urchins, and even the crown of thorns starfish. The trigger might as well be named after their temper, and this 1.5 vibe check is a big reason why beginner divers never go back in the water. Speaking of big, the Goliath grouper. At 8 feet up to 800 pounds, the fish the size of a small car feels more like a leftover Jurassic prop. Lucky for us, most divers describe it as a gentle giant with the temperament of a St. Bernard, although a St. Bernard didn't allegedly swallow an entire kid in the Florida Keys. Allegedly. But since we're...
Allegedly. Now, there's a guy, they literally just cut open a grouper in a restaurant. There's a human head inside of it. Like, that's just kind of crazy, but... I don't know, this guy with his allegedlys, like, I don't know.
On the subject, the last fish on this list.
Amazing.
Oh, look, an ad.
Night classes. Amazing starts at CSL Plasma. Donate plasma to...
Are catfish. And yeah, that's kind of cheating. There's over 3,000 species of catfish, even including the genital jihad, the Candiru. Catfish are like the trash compactors
Gulper
of the fish
catfish.
family, which isn't a problem until you see just how big they can really get. And once a catfish gets big enough, there aren't a lot of things alive they won't try to eat. We've seen armadillos, turtles, and even unaware seagulls get bored by a catfish. There's a species in France that figured out how to stalk and hunt bathing city pigeons. Another learned to wait by cave entrances to suck up any exhausted bats that fall in. There was even a catfish nicknamed Kuno the Killer who terrorized a German lake and somehow caught and ate someone's dog. Basically, they're all the shit I've talked about pelicans being, just in fish form. The question is, if a catfish has ever eaten a live human, and it isn't even if they would, but if they could. The Wells catfish can grow to 10 feet long and cap out at 300 pounds.
And that one's false also. There was a 15-foot Wells catfish caught by net, and there was an 18-foot one that was 18 foot 1 inch that was questionable, but still totally within their range. Wells catfish are massive. Longest catfish. This one that it's going into is the Mekong giant catfish, which they don't eat people, they're herbivores, so if he's going to mention something about that, that's kind of stupid. However, the Paraiba is also known to reach greater weights than this. It's funny because the Mekong giant catfish's listed weight of 646 pounds is I think what it is, and that's not even the biggest they get. There's one that was bigger than that, but somehow that doesn't get listed. But you can, fishingworldrecords.com is I think the website. Just go check all those. It's like they're all there. Piraiba up to 1,300 pounds. It's, you know, and 300 pounds for a Wells catfish. No, like record was 800. It just wasn't caught on a fishing rod, which means it doesn't count as a fishing record technically, unless it's caught rod and reel or bow fishing. So all these big fish that you hear these records for, there's actually a whole lot of them out there that are bigger than that have been caught. They just don't show up in the news because they don't count. Like, they don't count because they weren't caught in a pole. So that's another thing to consider. So this Mekong giant catfish, I don't know if he's going to list the weight or not, but there was one bigger than this one.
A Mekong catfish can also get to 10 feet.
Mekong.
And the heaviest one ever recorded was pushing 650 pounds. If there's a catfish that can stomach a human, it should be one of these. But
yeah, but no, those are herbivores. There's the Goonch. I mean, if he mentioned, I swear, if he says that they've never eaten someone, there are documented accounts of this happening. I swear.
But there's a slightly smaller catfish that was believed to be a legit man-eater. In the late 90s and early 2000s, a series of fatal attacks on people in the Gully River had people convinced there was something in the water hunting humans. In these attacks, victims were suddenly pulled underwater in front of people, only for their bodies to never be recovered. In 2007,
doesn't mention it. Okay, the thing was, these people were basically, as a ritual, putting dead bodies into the river and setting them on fire. So the Goonch basically ate those people, got fat off of them, and started liking the taste. So then they started taking live people and eating them too. And you know, like the average size of it, well, maximum average size of a Goonch is probably like 6 feet. Jeremy Wade had one that he could have sworn was 8+ because it was much larger than the one he hooked the previous time, and it was in the same spot too. But yeah, Goonch are just, they can probably get bigger than that. I mean, with all the catfish, I mean, a 15-foot Wells catfish, 18-foot Wells catfish. Piraiba are commonly cited to used to grow up to 12 feet long. Now they're heavily fished. They're like the #1 food fish in Brazil, so they're probably not reaching more than 6 feet these days, and even that's probably rare because they're just overfished. They're not getting as big anymore, except maybe in some really remote areas, but there's a time when 12-foot Piraibas were very common.
Dal Kumar was swimming with friends when he was violently dragged underwater, and while he was never seen again, friends caught a glimpse of something that they could only describe as an elongated pig. Crocs and bull sharks were considered, but the prime suspect ended up being the Goonch. At about over 6 feet, 200 pounds, the Goonch is usually smaller than the whales in the Mekong. But it's feared that the practice of burning funeral pyres by the river led to the equal opportunists developing a taste for
okay, he did mention it.
Human flesh. And while it's a stretch to say a corpse-happy catfish could swallow an adult, it becomes a little less believable with children. There's no solid proof of a catfish catching a person, but they for sure can.
False. Piraibas just, they'll eat you. There's photographic evidence of Piraibas eating people. Yeah. And a 12-foot Piraiba can easily swallow a child. I mean, they don't even need to be 12 foot to swallow a child. You're like 8 foot is probably good enough for a teen. And 10+ can swallow a fully grown adult man. Anyone over 6 feet, probably a 10-foot catfish could do that. Yeah, I mean, it's happened. It does happen. They said literally in Manaus, which is just one city in Brazil, a guy who was interviewed said there's people missing all the time, getting taken by catfish. Like literally, his words were all the time. People are vanishing all the time to catfish. So that's a thing. Piraiba are dangerous, so are red tails and jow and all these other giant catfish, except not the Mekong giant catfish since they're herbivores. But I mean, since he doesn't mention the Piraiba, because that's what Hannah told me, he doesn't mention the Piraiba. he is totally ignoring or has not heard about the Sabral Santos 2, which was a boat that sank in the Amazon River. And when that thing sank, there was 532 people on that. Oh wait, 532. Oh, I can't speak. 530 people on that boat, and 178 of them survived. The entire rest of them, 352, if I'm doing that math right, just got eaten by catfish, bull sharks, Candiru, river dolphins, and caiman. Yeah, that's all. Okay. So basically, you have these people who literally sank in a dock. So like, you think it wouldn't be that hard to get to the shore, but no, like that. Literally, the shore is just a few feet away. All they have to do is swim just a few feet, and they couldn't make it. 178 survived, but everyone else was plucked underwater and eaten. And basically, for weeks after the incident, they would be catching fish, and these fish would be cut open to eat, and they'd have toes, fingers, hands, legs, heads inside of them from people. And so the government actually imposed a ban on fishing for several months. And then eventually all those fish were either, after everything digested, they're like, okay, we can catch these things again. But there was a whole problem with that, which was just kind of brutal. And the reason that happened, don't get me wrong, catfish will eat you regardless of this, but basically these fish were supersized and they were like just used to being fed. There's a fish processing plant next to the dock, dump all of the guts of the fish and all that stuff into the water. So you have all these predators. You have the bull sharks, you have the caimans, you have the dolphins, you have the catfish, and you have the Candiru, and they're just all sitting there waiting. And whenever the guts and stuff would get dumped in the water, you have all these fish coming in and just eating it up. So next thing you know, all these people fall in the water, and it's fair game. It's just all those fish are going for them, dolphins and caiman too. Just everything is going for them, eating them, whatever. So there's a good portion that survived, but a good chunk of them just were, they're eaten. They couldn't find, this was before DNA testing. It was in 1981. It was before DNA testing, so most people, they have some disfigured faces. They have hands, toes, whatever. They just make a mass grave, throw all these body parts into it, and call that good. They just couldn't ID anyone out of the, just body parts laying around. So, yeah, that kind of sucked for the families. But just Piraiba is not an honorable mention, and he didn't even mention it, but Piraiba is the killer fish. In the ranking of the 3 most dangerous fish, sorry guys for spoiling 72, but Piraiba is at the number 1 due to its attack. It just actively attacks humans. It kills hundreds of people, and it's dangerous. The Piraiba is a literal child snatcher. It will go after children. It will go after adults. They find people tasty, so we're just prey to them. Number 2, you have the oceanic white-tip, which has been responsible for over 10,000 deaths of people throughout the course of recorded history, and almost all of these were shipwrecks where a boat sinks, airplane falls in water, whatever, and then the sharks just come in attracted to the noises of the boats exploding, boilers, whatever, and the sharks come in, and the oceanic white-tips are just eating up everybody who's in the water. Obviously there were survivors, but most people are getting taken out by these. You have 3,000 people in the water, at least half of them get eaten by sharks. They're all oceanic white-tips. The great whites and tiger sharks, they don't care. They don't do that. They're the ones that attack people by accident. The oceanic white-tip goes out and just hunts you. That's the thing about them. There's, I think, only been 1 recorded death on a beach by an oceanic white-tip, and that's because they don't go near beaches. They're called oceanic for a reason. They're out in the middle of the open ocean. So that's the thing with them. Number 3, you got the Arapaima. Almost, they will kill you, and they will hit you, and if you're not dead, they will hit you again. And it doesn't harm them because their head, they're pure bone, pure muscle. They're just hitting things with their head. They're doing fine, but whatever they're hitting, no, they get screwed over. A human gets hit in the head, you're dead. like, you know, that one video, like I say, that guy was faking it, because if you really got hit in the head full force, that's just instant death. It is brutal. Anyway, we'll finish up the catfish clip.
An off one. The biggest ones can easily
Tappa.
overpower you, if not just knock you out and drown you. Not to mention a majority are venomous, with those spines putting both experienced fishermen and oblivious bystanders in the hospital. They also have a nasty sandpaper-like bite that can easily draw blood. But what really makes them a living horror movie is their intelligence. The ones packing up pigeons, they weren't always doing that, but they pretty much ate everything else around them and were forced to adjust. So it's anyone's guess what could happen if they gain a taste for humans. And with catfish being swimming tongues with over 175,000 taste buds across their bodies, yeah, I doubt acquiring taste takes long. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you drink water, hug your mother, try not to get catfished out here. If you'd like to see me swim with slightly less freaky fish, the full GoPro footage of me in Hawaii will be uploaded to my Patreon. And with that last second self-promo out the way, I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.
Oh, hold on.
Blowing her bubbles.
Grandma is a big...
Okay, that is honestly the most adorable thing I've ever seen, that little catfish with its owner. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool and cute, but I mean, I have a pet catfish. His name's Reginald. He's a black bullhead, about a foot long. He's not going to get much bigger, but you know, he's fun. He's certainly smart. He shows his intelligence, and he's, you know, I raised him since he was a little newborn. Caught him out in the wild, raised him into an adult. He's like 9 years old. But yeah, I mean, if I was smaller than him and in the water, yeah, he's gonna eat me. You have to think about it that way, you know? It's like, if you were the size of a mouse, your cat's gonna eat you. At least if it's not, or cat, you know, whatever. It sees you running around. And if you, like, come across, like, you know, like a gecko, for instance. You have a tiny little gecko. But if you're the size of a cricket, you're right in front of it, and you're trying to run around and get away from it, oh, it's going to eat you. It doesn't have a sense of that. Like, you know, when you're human size, you know, big compared to it, it's like, oh, there's nothing to, you know, it's not a prey item, but, you know, you get that small. I mean, your own cat likely won't eat you if you're much smaller than it, but that's because it knows you and can recognize you. But if just some random stray feral cat sees you and you're like the size of a mouse, yeah, it's going to eat you. Same thing with catfish. You know, I know my pet catfish Reginald can't eat me, and he won't eat me, but that's because I'm bigger than him. If you shrink me down and drop me in his tank, yeah, he's gonna eat me. I'm gonna be instant food for him, because he's just a predator, and that's what they do. So yeah. Anyway, I mean, it was an interesting video, but yeah, there's just a lot not mentioned. So I mean, interesting clips and all that. But it's just, I mean, especially in the catfish chunk, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that could have been mentioned that was not. Catfish are the most dangerous group of fish out there, you know. It's like, if you want to count pufferfish, they're number 2, killing like 100 people a year from their poison. But if you exclude them, then, well, actually, it's kind of a funny hierarchy there. It's like you have catfish at the top, taking out the most people. Then you have pufferfish with their poison. After that, you would have probably a tie between the Arapaima and the barracuda, whereas barracuda have only killed 3 people in all of history, at least recorded deaths. However, they kill about 50 people per year to the poisons in their meat. So when people are eating barracuda, sometimes they die. And then Arapaima can probably, you know, it's give or take probably 50 a year. So I mean, it could be more. Anyone who gets near an Arapaima nest is pretty much guaranteed dead if you're just swimming in the water. I mean, also the Wells catfish, they protect their nests, and so if you get too close to their nest, then they'll attack you. They might not eat you, but they'll grab you by the foot, by the hand, whatever. They'll drown you. They might not eat you because it won't be big enough, but I mean, well, that's the other thing. Even if a catfish isn't like big enough to eat you and it drowns you, all it has to do is just sit around for a few days until you're soft enough, then it can just rip off chunks On its own, it doesn't need, if you're a fresh corpse, it can't really eat you that efficiently unless it's a goonch because they have big teeth. But yeah, or I guess a tappa, they have big teeth too. But yeah, I mean, catfish are the one group of fish you don't want to mess with if they're bigger than you. Like sharks, no, don't worry about sharks. Sharks are fine. They only worry about the oceanic white tip. I mean, great whites, tiger sharks, bull sharks, they're not something to worry about. They're not something to fear. But if you're going to fear any shark, yeah, choose the oceanic white tip. But even then, you're not likely to run into them or be killed by one unless you happen to be out in the middle of a boat that gets torpedoed or otherwise sinks. And then, yeah. But anyway, thanks guys for watching. That's it for the video. And I guess if you want to, you can check out my 72 Dangerous Fish show, 72 Dangerous Animals Prehistory. I haven't had much time to work on 72 Dangerous Fish. I only have one episode out right now. But it's just so much classwork. Yeah, I mean, after next week, actually, my weekend's free up because one of my classes ends since it's an 8-week class. And then I will be able to hopefully get some new 72 Dangerous Fish episodes out. Next episode, if I remember correctly, has the Arapaima and the stonefish, if I'm remembering correctly. So things like that. Episode 3, spoiler, has the Piraiba, so I guess you guys know who's winning that episode. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.